episode is all about accidents. And I really want, when you listen to this episode, for you to think differently about accidents that you've had in your life. Maybe you're at a place where you've accepted them and you've learned from them. But I would like to take an approach where they've happened to you for a reason. And what might that reason be? Have you ever considered and really done work on and reflected on the accidents in your life and how they might have not been accidents? Maybe they're gifts. And how could they have been gifts? And it's worth some thought. And so I wanted to share this perspective and think it's a good one. Enjoy and reach out if it really made you think differently. I hope it helps you through some past accident that you've really been maybe judging yourself negatively for. It's not helping you, right? So I want you to give yourself some grace and really think about how these accidents might have been not that at all. Welcome to my last lessons learned episode of Living Your Spark Second Half. Yes, it is the end of a 12-month commitment to do lessons learned on Fridays. And I am thinking about what to do going forward, but I'm just going to let it be flexible. I might do more lessons learned just because I like that, you know, view of sharing a lesson that I learned. I like that spin on having a topic with imbued with lessons, but I'm going to do other things too. And I've been doing over the last few weeks, since I haven't been doing interviews as much as I was, I've been doing more educational topics, like sharing something that I find, like sharing knowledge on my Tuesdays episodes. And then on Fridays, kind of like a follow up, more of a lesson learned follow up to it. So I'm going to do more abundance ones. I had so much fun doing an abundance series the year before. So I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to use my cards. I'm going to pull my energy oracle cards to get downloads from my higher self and see what comes up with those. So I'm just going to do a variety of things. So I hope you enjoy going forward. If you have anything that you'd like me to talk about or you'd like my spin on, feel free to send me an email at Lori Wright at notyouraveragegrandma.com. You can always reach me there or reach me on social media. So today we're going to talk about accidents. The lesson in accidents. Isn't that a good way to end talking about accidents? And so I was thinking about accidents in my life that I originally viewed as accidents, which ended up not being accidents at all. It's our perspective, right? Once your perspective shifts, it's a gift when you can look at an accident in a different way. So I'd like to know how you view accidents and if you've had accidents in your life and if you're still viewing them as accidents. And, maybe some things are accidents like car accident, right? Uh, One thing about accidents, though, what happens after the accident? Like, what things did you learn after the accident? I'm thinking about what came up for me as I was saying that. It wasn't even actually in my notes to talk about, but when I think about accidents in my life, one of my big accidents was hurting my knee. I tore my MCL on the ski slope when I was 15, and it was a bad accident. I got carried down on a stretcher. I had to go to the hospital. I ended up having surgery on my knee. I have a nice scar from it. And yeah, it was a bad accident. And I think for most of my life, I viewed that as an accident. But I learned so much about how strong I am about dealing with pain. And I learned also, I feel like I can sympathize with people who have knee injuries. And I've been able to overcome my knee pain uh, through exercise and taking care of myself. And I really feel like I don't have a bad knee. I used to always say, I have a bad knee. I have a bad knee. But I learned through exercise, strengthening my knee actually has reduced the pain, and better nutrition reduces that. And so it's like, yeah, that was an accident. Wished it didn't happen. But then I learned a lot. The physical therapy was grueling. I learned so much about myself in the process. And so that wasn't the accident I was going to talk about, but I just thought it was a good topic because I would love for you to take a look at what accidents you've had in your life and start to think about, and this is a good journaling exercise, about what you learned from that accident. What was the impact after the accident? A lot of people who've had really bad accidents, like car accidents, and been severely injured, will talk about how that it's the best thing that ever happened to them because of what they learned about themselves or who they met in the process, nurses, doctors. Yeah. And so I was thinking about, because my last episode was about giving birth after menopause, a little spin on that, and how you, when you are having a baby versus giving birth to a goal and a dream, how with a baby you're focused on the outcome. And so you don't think about the labor, you don't think about the efforting it takes during that 9 months. But with a goal, we don't think about the outcome. We think about the efforting, and it tends to make us not follow through on our actions and complete our goals and achieve our goals. So, but I was thinking about the birth thing and about giving birth. And how my mind works is something I think of always leads me to something else. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great episode topic. I need to talk about this. So I was thinking about my first baby being an accident. She was an accident. Yes. Was she really an accident? No, she was not an accident at all. Best thing that ever happened to me. And my ex-husband and I weren't married very long. In fact, we only dated 8 months, and he was a rebound. And so we got married quickly, and we got married in February, and I got pregnant in November. And so by the time she was born, had only been together for, gosh, I guess 2 years at that point. So we didn't really have, I mean, we probably only had 18 months together before I got pregnant. And your whole personality changes when you're pregnant because you're not the same person as after pregnancy and after childbirth. You're not the same person as you were when you're a single person. So you have other I mean, my children became really my focus. Poor guy. He was kind of like neglected. We really hadn't developed a solid relationship, I don't think, before. And we had never even talked about whether we wanted kids. I was 22 when I got married, so very young, but we hadn't talked about what our feelings were about children, how many kids we wanted to have. All of a sudden, one day I was just pregnant. It was like, oh, and we were both excited, which was good. But I don't think we were really necessarily ready. I think I was more ready than he was, but she was definitely unplanned and a surprise. But I loved her from the minute I found out I was pregnant, and it wasn't even a question. Uh, but it made me think about accidents and how we view things that are accidents, uh, and how nothing is an accident, really, in the larger scheme of things, in the universal perspective. First of all, none of us humans are accidents. And I think events are not accidents. So while I was thinking about this, I thought that there's a point here that is really valuable. And it's that as humans, we tend to confuse unintended with accidental, while believing actions with intention, in other words, intentional, are purposeful. So let me say that again. We think unintended is accidental and intended is purposeful. And when we do that, we think purposeful actions, because they're intentional, are the right ones. And we think unintentional actions, in other words, accidents, are the wrong ones. Right? But here's the crazy truth, as I've discovered: purpose has nothing to do with intention. Purpose can be accidental. If I think my daughter has a purpose for being here, but there was nothing intentional about her being here that I did, it was accidental in terms of, if I had any control over it, I I was not trying to get pregnant. I in fact was trying to prevent pregnancy. But purpose can be accidental. It's the universe taking action for you. Even if we're not intentional in our action, it's still happening. So how is that? How can that happen? It's for a purpose. In fact, I think what many don't realize is that action taken with intention, when you are being intentional and you think it's for a purpose, may actually be the wrong action. And I think that's the important part here. Because it's intentional doesn't mean it's the right thing. Because when we are being intentional, we have a human brain. And our human brain, if you've listened to any of my trainings and how the brain works, our human brain is driven to action, often based on fear, on judgment, on lack of confidence, lack of faith, on distrust, and a host of many other unserving thoughts. We are adding logic into the equation. And when we are operating from logic and it's based on any of these unserving thoughts, even though it's with intention, it doesn't necessarily mean it's probably it actually more often than not is the wrong thing. It's the wrong action. We're conditioned to do that. Our human brain wants to interfere with everything and decide things for us, and we defer to it when our heart is telling us something different. And so what happens is that the universe intervenes often. If we keep making the wrong decisions, if we keep taking the wrong action, the universe intervenes. And I'm not suggesting that I was taking wrong actions and that led to her being the purpose. I'm just saying in general, I was just speaking that I thought she was an accident. She was not intended, but she was the universe's purpose, and a right action by the universe that I was not in control of brought her here. And just like other things, just like car accidents, just like accidental meetings, just like I was an accident. And I remember when I found out I was an accident, it was hard to take. And the funny thing is, I was an adult, I had kids of my own, and we were sitting around the supper table. And it was my mom and my dad and my sister and her husband, just my sister and I, no other siblings. Um, and we all had kids at the time. And my sister and I had kids. So my kids, my sister's kids, but they were young. They were very young. And my parents got married very quickly. Only dated 5 months, and then they had my sister. They got married in March, and my sister was born at the end of December. So if you add it all up, it's more than 9 months, really. They got married March 2nd, December 28th, she was born. So technically, they were married when they got pregnant. But I was just egging my dad on, and I was like, "Oh, she was just an accident, wasn't she? She was an accident, wasn't she?" I didn't think about how she'd feel if she was an accident. I was like, when I think about it in retrospect, how I felt when I found out I was an accident, I thought, "Oh my gosh, she might have felt how I felt." And that would have been horrible, and how sad that I was, like, not even feeling what any concern for her and how she would feel if she was an accident. I just I didn't have any realization of how bad it'd feel to find out you were an accident. And so I found out, so my dad said, he blurted out, "No, Lori, you were the accident. In fact, after I found out your mother was pregnant, I went screaming out of the house and running down the street." And I was like, "Thanks, Dad. Um, that is not how you want to feel that you're the consummation of the sperm and egg joining was a reaction like that." And I struggled with that because back then I had no, like, I didn't have the beliefs I have now, or the concept of uh the higher self and the 5D world, and you know all the things that you can't see that are there. And so, I was just like, it is what it is. And we're here and we die, and there's no, like, spirits helping us or guiding us or any of that. And so, but now I know I came here and I picked the time and the place and I picked the parents, and and part of the reason you pick the time and the place is because when you come through the universe and your soul enters a body, you get imprinted with they're called neutrinos, and they're particles, and it's so interesting. If you know anything about human design, you'd learn about this. But it's very fascinating stuff. So the time you're born, and the place you're born, and that's all part of the picture that paints you. That is now how I know nothing could have stopped me from coming. And so I was meant to be here, and I was no accident. But my parents were very poor, and my dad was, in fact, had gone back to school, and he was working at a gas station, to make money, plus was going to school. And my mom was, I don't think, working at the time, just taking care of us. Uh, and it was a tough time in their life, in their early marriage. And so they were just living on love, and that's what got them pregnant the second time, I guess. But I just thought this was an interesting topic because, when you think about accidents, and thinking about the topic of giving birth last episode that I was talking about, I started thinking about, oh gosh, yes, I was an accident. My daughter was an accident. But were we really accidents? And what do accidents mean? They're unintentional. And then I started thinking about, oh, what about intention? Well, just because it's intentional doesn't mean that it's the right thing. And unintention can can be the very right thing. And it's an interesting perspective to think about that. So, it's quick episode. I just had that kind of interesting download of, as I was just writing my notes about my last episode, and that started coming to me. It was like, it's coming to my brain. I was like, I need to write this down. I need to write this down. So I started writing down, scribbling out my thoughts. I was like, I should share this because I think it's got some value because of what I would like you to do as an action, because I really like to be action oriented with my episodes, because when you take action, you learn something from your actions. And so I hope that these help, and that in the action that you take, that you are a little bit changed by it and then something shifts in you. But I would love for you to jot down your accidents, the big accidents in your life that weren't intentional, and what came of those. What right things resulted from those that make you now think that was no accident? That would give you a new perspective, especially if it's an accident that you feel that you were responsible for or you caused in some way, because we need to release that guilt if we feel that. I always felt guilty about my knee accident because it was, like I said, a ski accident. And it was a day that my parents didn't want me to go skiing. We went away. We were about 2 hours from the closest ski resort, and I went with a girlfriend and a couple of guy friends, and it wasn't a great ski day. In fact, it was kind of rainy and icy, and they didn't want me to go, but they said, "It's your decision. You decide." And I decided, and then, of course, ended up having to have surgery. I'm sure it cost them some money, and medical bills and such. And so I felt guilty for that because I made the wrong decision. And I even though they said it was your decision, it felt like it was the wrong decision. And I had failed them in that decision. But yeah, what other things can you think of in your life? And then maybe think about the things that you did with intention that weren't on accident, and the things that you thought were really based on such good intention, but then for whatever reason, they didn't work out. They didn't have the result that you desired or wanted, that you realize now looking back, it was the wrong thing. And I know that was my first marriage. And I know I thought I was doing the right thing. It was with intention, but it ended up being the wrong thing. Now, I do have my children, so that is, I'm very thankful for. But that was a logic decision that I made, when in fact, my heart was not in it completely. There was somebody else in the picture, which is another episode that I've done. You can listen to that. But yeah, so I knew deep in my heart that I wasn't all in, although I was just like, this is the right thing. He'll be a good dad. He'll be a good man. He'll be a good husband, and all the things, convincing myself. And he was for quite some time. But when you approach something like that with good intention, but yet it's all driven by logic and doesn't have the support of the heart, ultimately it's not sustainable. And so those are, yeah, tough lessons to learn, but it's an exact example of what I'm saying about when you have intention and it's not the right thing, and you have no intention and it is, dang if it's the right thing. And often it's not because of you, it's because of the universe. Crazy, crazy stuff. So that's it for lessons learned. And I hope you continue to listen and see what's in store for future Fridays. I'll surprise you. All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into the Living Your Spark Second Half podcast. If you'd like to watch my guest interviews, you can find the video version of this podcast on my Not Your Average Grandma YouTube channel. Also, you can check out what I have going on at the moment by going to my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com, or find me on Instagram or Facebook at notyouraverage.grandma. If you like this episode, please mention it to a friend, and don't forget to leave a review so I know the topics you like best and can bring you more of that content in upcoming episodes. Last but not least, remember to always listen to that inner voice that will never steer you wrong, and make living from the most sparked place possible your biggest priority.
When we do that, we make the world a better place.